Hello and welcome back to another episode of Good to Great. This is the podcast for women wanting to take their health, mindset, and business from good to great. I'm your host, Ash. You can find more about me over on Instagram at Coached by Ash Murph. But for now, let's dive straight into today's episode. Guys, I really just felt called to whip out my phone and film this episode. It's a random Sunday. I have so many other podcast episodes coming out, but this I just felt really called to sit down and film. I'm about to head overseas, so I wanted to get this filmed and just put it out at some point in the future. I don't know when this will actually go live, but let's talk about the fact that you are the creator of your reality and how to be that creator and actually be happy with the life that you're living and create a different life for yourself if you're unhappy in the one that you're currently in. I want to speak on this because I think it's something I've done myself, actually probably more than once. And I think there's a lot of people out there who feel like they're just not quite fulfilled in what they're doing. They want more, they want to do more, they want to be more, and they want to feel more fulfilled, but they don't know what they actually need to do to get there or how to do it or what the next step is. Maybe they just need that little bit of encouragement, and I'm hoping that this episode is exactly that for them. So I have just been reflecting and really sitting in the feeling of everyone's talking about, the economy and the cost of living and the increasing prices of things. And I actually was listening to a podcast episode this morning from Brittany Saunders, and she was talking about how she's closing down her cafe, a business that she runs. And she was just saying, the cost of running the business is a lot. And she didn't really I could go into that, but if you want to listen to that, you can go to her podcast. But essentially, she just talked about a few things like the rising costs of things like coffee and how people can't afford to just buy a coffee every day and things like that. And it just got my mind ticking. And it is the reality that a lot of people can't afford to go and buy a coffee every single day. Am I in a position to go and buy a coffee every single day? I mean, yeah, sure, I guess I could, but would it mean I wouldn't be saving as much money? Probably. But there is a fine line between playing into the victim of your current reality and actually standing up and deciding to change your reality and do something about it. Because whilst, yes, we are living in a, rising economy and there is inflation, the cost of living has gone up, but the wages don't reflect that. It's all just facts. And yes, it's true, but to an extent, because you can look at it from a victim lens of everything's going up, the price is rising, poor me, I can't afford this, I can't do that, my wage hasn't gone up. Have you asked for a pay rise? Have you explored other jobs? Have you applied for other jobs with a higher salary? What have you actually done that's within your control to reflect this? Because you can sit around all day and complain about the cost of living and the rising cost of your, Friday morning cup of coffee, but if you're not doing anything about it, then what is the point in complaining? There is literally no other point than for you to feel soothed. If you are complaining about the situation and not doing anything about it, you're only going to attract more people that are also going to complain about the situation with you. Where's that going to get you? Absolutely nowhere. We live in a world where it has never been easier to start a business, to make money online, to have a side hobby. There is so many avenues you can go down to earn an extra income, maybe get a second job. And it's not always about working more hours means making more money. Sometimes you can work less and make more money. And I really think that we're just living in a world right now where everyone loves to be a victim to the economy and blame the government and the rules and the inflation. And at the end of the day, can you control that? No, you absolutely cannot. Sure, we can choose, who we vote for and all of that, but we actually never have a full control over the outside, like the things outside of us and the world that we're living in. But we do have control over, the money that we're earning, the jobs that we're in, and the people we surround ourselves with, the conversations we're having, the mindset we have, our outlook. We have control over those things, but a lot of people don't maybe want to recognize that or admit that or even believe that. But this episode is really for the person that's like, I don't want to believe that. I want to do something different and I want to stop being a victim to my own reality. If that is you, keep on listening. If you want to keep sitting around the table with closed-minded people and complaining about the cost of inflation, then probably click off this episode because it's not for you. So, what can you do? Like, what can you do about this? Literally sit down with yourself and ask yourself some questions. Like, am I happy in my current line of work? And you know what? Like, this is not even always about making more money. It might even just be about being like feeling more fulfilled in what you're doing. Because some people are just going to work a job just so they can pay their bills to put food on the table. What kind of life is that? Anyway, that's probably a whole other episode I could do. So maybe I'm not going to go into that right now. But for example, I want to go into a bit of a story on my own experience with this, because I think hearing someone's like firsthand experience is something that, makes it more relatable and also is then going to give you that proof of like, oh, okay, she's not just talking shit out of her ass. She knows what she's talking about and she's lived that experience, because I have lived this experience, and on more than one occasion, I've lived this experience. So, for example, for those of you who maybe haven't followed me for as long or are just listening to this podcast randomly, you've never listened to my podcast before, I used to live and work in London, and I had a 9-to-5 job. It was what I thought was probably my sort of dream job until I was really in it, working day in, day out. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. And it got to a point where there was more things I didn't like about the job than I probably did like about the job. I found it very hard to separate my work life from my actual life, seeing as I was working like on social media and in marketing, and everything was on my phone. Like, I had no work phone. So I was very much taking my work home with me 24/7. Like, it's your phone, right? Like, you're always on your phone, and I was always on my phone, and I always felt like work was just like hanging around. And so I was kind of getting to a point where I wasn't loving work, but I also wasn't hating it. But I also definitely, living in London, was not loving the money I was earning, because I was genuinely at a point where I could not afford to really even like eat good meals. I couldn't afford to heat my house. I would walk around my house in socks, Ugg boots, leggings, track pants, like layers upon layers just to keep myself warm, because I literally couldn't afford to heat my own house. That's where I was at. And so I'd asked for a pay rise. I'd gotten a pay rise. It still just wasn't enough to comfortably live my life. Also, as someone who's on a short-term visa and I only have, a certain amount of time that I'm living on the other side of the world for, I want to make the most of that. I want to experience things. I wanted to go traveling. I wanted to have an income that actually let me live a life I really liked and enjoyed, rather than, oh, I have no money to go out this weekend. I'm stuck sitting at home in my freezing cold apartment. This is no fun. So, in that moment, I had a choice to be a victim to my reality and say, poor me, I'm not getting paid enough. I can't, put food on my plate. Like, I'm eating tuna and rice for lunch every day. The world sucks. This sucks. I hate, the cost of living in London. This is extreme. This is so stupid. I could have sat in that. And I know I did play to that victim role plenty more than I could have, or should have, I should say. And it got to a point where I was like, I need to do something about this. So I did do something about it. I decided I was going to start a bit of a side hustle. I was going to do some UGC, like content creation. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's essentially filming content for brands to use on ads. So it's not necessarily actually content that you're posting to social media. So you're not necessarily like an influencer or anything. You're more so just creating content for a brand as if you're a user of their product that then they can use on their social media and on their advertisements. And obviously I was working in social media and marketing. I had my Instagram page running at the time. I was very comfortable in front of a camera. I had the skills to film, edit, do all of that. So it was kind of the perfect, side hustle for me to pick up. That and the fact that I genuinely really enjoyed being creative and having, that love for being behind the camera, for creating content. And so I put it out there that I was starting to do this little side hustle. I was going to, create more income, whatever. Not create more income. I wasn't like posting that I was doing it for that reason. But yeah, I just put it out there like, hey, I'm doing UGC, looking for brands to work with, whatnot. My work was not happy about it. They kicked up a stink. I was told I needed to take down my posts. I wasn't allowed to do that. It conflicted with my work. And I was basically like, well, fuck you. If you're watching the video right now, lol. But yeah, that was essentially my reaction. I thought, well, I can stay in this job and continue being a victim to a shitty salary, a shitty life, living the same life on repeat every month and being unhappy, or I can do something about it. So I actually quit my job without another job lined up. It was definitely a risk and a gamble. I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying what I did and what my choices were, because I knew I wanted to make this UGC thing work. And I knew that there was a potential for me to make so much more money than I was currently making for working like the same amount of hours, right? And also being able to do life on my own terms and live life on my own terms and not be in this 9 to 5 where I'm commuting, an hour to work and back from work every day. And it was definitely, there was a lot of things that contributed to it. But when they were like, no, you can't have another job outside of this. And I was like, what do you mean I can't have another job? Because I can't afford to live my life right now. So see you later, gave them the flick. I worked and I grinded. I think I had to give them a month's notice. Every single night for that month that I was leaving that job, I worked on my UGC like portfolio. I started pitching brands. I was doing as much as I could behind the scenes to set myself up to be able to get some work coming in once I'd left that job. Not only this, I started looking into nanny jobs because I knew as someone who had a lot of experience as a nanny. For those of you who don't know, I've also been an au pair before. So I lived in the United States for 18 months as a live-in nanny, looking after children. So working like 30 to 45 hours a week, being the sole carer of children. So I obviously was a very experienced nanny. So I started looking for nanny jobs. I had a month off work purposely while my mum came over, visited me. I used some of my saved up money from when I was in Australia to do some traveling with her. And then into my lap fell a nanny job. I got this job working as a nanny and it was a 3-day-a-week job. So this is going from a 9 to 5 to working 3 days a week. And I was earning the same amount of money, like the same salary almost. It was like the slightest bit under, but literally working 2 less days per week. So a lot less work. So I took the nanny job. I got my UGC stuff out and rolling. Work started flowing in with that. I started getting retainer clients. So I was making almost the same salary from working 3 days a week as a nanny. And obviously, like, I love nannying. It's something that personally I loved so much. And I mean, in another life, I'd probably still be a nanny. I love children. I love caring. I think like acts of service is like my love language. So doing that for work, obviously now instead of caring for children, I care for other women. That's what I do for work. It's just something that purely I love, like helping other people and looking after other people. So doesn't obviously surprise you, the industry that I'm in now. But I left that job. I got this nanny job. I started work as a UGC creator, and had such a more flexible lifestyle. I could do so much more with my time, with my money. I was earning more money, I was working less. Like, it was just a win-win-win situation. And so many other people I knew were in the same position as me and in that same boat of complaining that they weren't earning enough, that their wage wasn't enough when I was in that 9 to 5, yet they all stayed. No one else was finding another way to make ends meet. They were happy to stay where they were and complain about it. And I think this is the problem that we have in our current day and age, is you can be in a position that's kind of shitty, that kind of sucks, and people will validate you staying. They won't tell you to go and do something else about it. They won't tell you to, go find a side hustle and encourage you that there is other options. And that's kind of what I want to get across in this episode, I guess. I feel like I've been a bit all over the place, but that's fine. We don't care. We're going to upload this anyway. But we literally live in a day and age where you can get on AI and it will literally teach you how to start a business. You can get on AI and it will help you create a website, it will run half a business for you. You can go on Google, you can research on TikTok. I didn't know anything about UGC when I started. I learned everything I learned over that time period literally through watching other people on TikTok and studying what they did to be successful, studying how they made portfolios. I never paid for any type of education, if you will, around becoming a UGC creator. I simply just studied all of the free information I could find online, and it served me right. I ended up with this UGC career part-time, and it just goes to show you that if you are truly wanting to change the situation that you are in, if you are wanting to stop being a victim to your current life, your current situation, your salary, your job, your friendship circle, whatever it may be, you are capable of changing that. But it is up to you to decide that you need to do something different if you want something different. You can't just sit there and complain and hope that something's going to change, that your boss is going to come out of nowhere and give you a pay rise when you haven't even asked for it. So next time you find yourself sitting in a group of people and find that conversation coming up of inflation sucks, the economy's fucked, yada, 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 actually stop and ask yourself, do I want to participate in this conversation? Because yes, it's facts. Inflation's real. The price of living is going up. But also, what are you not doing about it? What are you not changing about it? The world is changing around us, yet we are not changing with it. Some of us are, but some of you aren't. And I see a lot of women using this as a bit of a smokescreen as to why they can't work on or invest in their health, their fitness, their wellness. And at the end of the day, everything is a choice. And if you really want something bad enough, you will find a way to make it work. I truly believe that. I've been through so many of my own hardships in my personal life that I've done the same thing. There was a point in my life where I had 6 jobs at once because I really wanted to save a lot of money. And so that was the sacrifice that I made. And I'm not saying that there won't sometimes be a sacrifice. Sometimes we have to put a lot of work in the beginning of something. Like I said, when I was building my UGC stuff, I was working a 9 to 5 and I was coming home, and from 5 to 9, I was working on my UGC. I was creating my portfolio, pitching brands, filming, editing, creating videos to put in a portfolio. It took me a lot of work in the early days to get that going, to get that started, to literally work out how to make a portfolio. I literally knew nothing, and I had to put a lot of work in with absolutely zero return for probably the first 2 months. And I worked with brands for free. I created free content for them in exchange for literally just getting experience. But we live in a world where people don't want to do that. They don't want to do the little bit of extra work for free. They don't want to put the effort in. They want to just be able to click their fingers and get an instant result. But I think what really separates seeing success in our current day and age is if you are willing to show up, to put the work in and to do the reps, stay consistent and be in something for the long-term game, you can truly be so successful. So with that being said, I know this episode has literally been so all over the place, but I just feel like some people really need to hear this. So hopefully this has inspired you to maybe actually sit down and have a look at your current situation. What are you currently playing victim to? And what is something that you can change? And it doesn't have to be a decision that you make overnight. It can be something that you sit on for the next couple weeks and then you decide. But you can either continue playing the victim to the current circumstances of the world, or you can take matters into your own hands and you can make a change for yourself. You have the power to change your life. You have the power to make more money, to surround yourself with better people, to have, better influences around you, to educate yourself. There is so much out there for free to educate yourself with. Like, there is literally never been a time in history where we have so much access to free information, free resources to help us do better, to help us be better people, to help us make more money, to make the world a better place. And I think I'm going to leave it at that because it honestly is so true. And I can keep, saying this until the cows come home, but you're either going to sit here and decide to make a change and that you're willing to put some extra work and effort into creating your own future and a future that you are happy and proud of, or you're just going to stay stuck in your victim mindset. It's really not going to make much of a difference how much more I harp on about this from here on out. So with that being said, go away, sit down, have a serious conversation with yourself and ask yourself, like, what do I actually want? And how can I start today creating that future for myself and changing my current trajectory of, my next 5, 10, 15, 30 years of my life? That's your homework. I'm going to leave it there. If you want to connect, come over and chat with me on Instagram at coachby.ashmurph. And if you enjoyed this episode or any of my other episodes, I really ask that you please just leave a rating and review of this show. Or just a rating. You don't have to review it. Just a rating would mean the world to me as a small creator. You have no idea what your 10 seconds out of your day, how that impacts me and my business and my day. So thank you. Goodbye, and I will see you all in my next episode.